Hello, all. Testing 1, 2. I know you can hear me, but you're not seeing me for some reason. Hopefully that fixes, that corrects itself in the next couple of seconds here. I'm not sure why it's not showing correctly. Let me see. Hello, Miss Bishop 9616. Good to see you. I know you can't see me, or it looks like it's an error. Like it looks like it's blurred out on my end. Is that the way I look to you guys? Am I blurred up, blurred out? If I am, let me know. If I'm not, if you could see me fine, that's great. It's just my system. But I'm just welcome everybody to your daily word. I'm so glad to be back, right? Today we're beginning one of the most familiar, beloved, probably the most, not the most, but at least one of the most frequently quoted chapters in the Bible. So I would say it's one of definitely, I mean, the other one we just finished, Matthew 6, is very heavily quoted. Yes, okay, we're blurry. Sorry, guys. I just don't have my system set up, my normal system. But you can hear me. I apologize. I'm just going to keep on going. Otherwise, there's no fix right now that I can think of. Let me see. Let me switch over to something. Let me see if I can fix this. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I could. No. I don't know if there's going to be a fix on this, guys. Let me try one more thing. No, I'm not seeing a fix, so I apologize. Probably going to lose quite a few people. They're like, what the heck? What is this? But anyways, so Psalm 23 is definitely one of the most quoted chapters in the Bible. No doubt about it. You'll hear, okay, good. Thank you, Claudia saying you can hear me fine. Let me see if the messages are coming in. So yes, okay, yes. All right, the messages you're able to see those. Welcome, thank you. Hello, YDW family. 50-cent dollar, blurry. Yes, but Claudia Sand says, clearly hear you, Pastor. Okay, all right. Let's just go with it, right? Otherwise, I'm going to have to stop and just lose this stream. So I'm just going to keep on going. But many of us have heard this psalm mainly at funerals. I mean, that's the truth. Psalm 23 is almost every time at every funeral. I know I probably quote it at least at 90% of the funerals that I've done, Psalm 23. But you'll see Psalm 23 printed everywhere on plaques, on greeting cards, on different programs. And usually we quote it, especially at church. Okay. Not able to see messages. You are like frozen and blurry. Might as well restart stream. Someone saying might as well restart it. I'm just going to keep on going as long as you can hear me. But many times, even though we will quote this Psalm 23, walking through sicknesses, walking through loss, when we're uncertain about something, or mainly when we're facing grief, right? So like I said, at funerals, you'll hear Psalm 23. But Psalm 23, that chapter, the 23rd chapter of Psalm, is not merely a psalm for the end of life, because that's what a lot of people think. That it's not just a psalm for the end of life, but it's a psalm for every season of life. And we're going to find that out, because it's a psalm about living under the care of a shepherd. And so you're going to see as we go through this that it's not just a psalm for the end of life, but through every part of life. And so like our previous series that we've done, the last one being Matthew 6, over this course, over this series, we are going to slow down. We're going to examine this passage line by line, or this chapter, I should say, phrase by phrase, precept upon precept. You've heard of that. And as I said a million times in the previous series, we're not going to rush through this. And you know what? This is only 6 verses. Psalm 23 only has 6 verses. And we're not going to rush it. We're not going to just take our time for the sake of taking our time. We are going to go through, like I said, line by line, simply because it's so powerful. And we're not going to rush it because it's familiar to many of you. Because sometimes the most familiar passages are the ones that we need to examine most carefully. And so because this is a familiar passage, we are not going to rush it. We are going to take our time. I'll ask questions like, what do these words mean when David first wrote them? And that's really kind of how I like to do this Bible study, is I try to look at it from the author's perspective, from their point of view. So the question I'll ask during this series is, what would a shepherd living in an ancient world have understood? What were they trying to say? What is it that culture? What is it that nation, right? How would they hear this message? And we're going to talk a lot about David because he's the one that wrote it. So what did David know about sheep? What did he know about the wilderness? What did he know about valleys, about enemies, about oil, about the shepherd's rod, about the shepherd's staff? What did David know about that? Why was he so familiar with it? I think a lot of you know the answer, the basic answer of that. You know what? Let me go ahead and try to reset this because it looks like we're losing most of our crowd. Oh, there we go. I got it. It looks a little messed up, but oh well. That's life. Yeah. And I can't get it zoomed out, I don't think. I had it set perfect, but that's just the nature of doing live stream. Because we are live, as you can see. And so, man, I wish I would have did that earlier. I don't know what I did. I'll have my studio set up, hopefully in the next, you guys can see me well now, right? But I'll have my studio set up, hopefully, I don't know, in the next couple of weeks, maybe sooner. But it's a difficult process, man. It's a difficult thing to set up a studio. And so I'll have all the camera gear and lighting and all that stuff. But one of the other questions I'm going to ask is, what does Psalm 23, what does it reveal about the character of God? Because we see the character of God through this psalm, through this chapter, so incredibly powerful and clear. And so what we're going to be talking about is, what does it reveal about the character of God? What does this psalm reveal about the character of God? Because we want to hear that. We want to hear this psalm through the ears of the people who first heard it, right? So the audience that this psalm was intended to, we want to hear through their ears the best we can. We want to see its pictures through the eyes of David, right? A shepherd, David, who was a shepherd who had actually walked through the fields and wilderness of ancient Israel. And so that's the eyes we want to see this through Psalm 23. And we want to hear it through the eyes of the original audience who this psalm was originally directed to. Because we don't want to start with a modern Western. I say Western because I know we got people. We haven't got our African people back yet, but we don't want to see these pictures and the character of God explained through a shepherd and sheep through the eyes of just Americans or the Western world, or even I'd say modern world. Because when I say sheep, the majority of us will imagine a sheep on a pasture, right, in a green hill with the picket fence and woo woo woo. That's what we think of when we hear the sheep grazing, if you will, behind a white picket fence on a beautiful green farm, right? And when we talk about shepherd, I mean, how many of you know a shepherd personally? Probably 99.9% of you do not, if not all of us, right? How many of us know a shepherd personally, like someone who takes care of sheep? How many people do we know, really? So we need to go back to ancient Israel. We need to go look through this through the lens and eyes of David, and not look at it through our modern world and our modern understanding of what a shepherd is and a sheep, right? Because when David wrote this, he lived in ancient Israel. He lived in that time. He lived in a rugged. He lived in a dangerous land. We don't identify with that. I mean, our dangerous land is different, right? The dangers we may face in our land are different than what David would face, right? David would face bear, lions, as he mentions in the Bible, in Psalm, or even in 1 Samuel. His dangers that he faced are different. You know, we can go down the street and be robbed, right? Or have a terrorist attack or whatever. And those are the dangers we live by. But they're different, right? When David talks about the dangers in Psalm that we read in Psalm 23, they're going to be different than our dangers. And so we need to see it through their lens. Because the land surrounding Bethlehem in the Judean wilderness, if you will, it was dry, it was rocky, it was difficult. So even just the land itself is something that we need to look at and understand that it's different than what we experience today, most of us, right? Rainfall was seasonal as it is in most places, but they didn't have ways to collect water like we do, right? And green pastures back then wasn't always a large, lush field waiting for a sheep or a lamb or a goat, whatever. At certain times, vegetation back then might appear in small patches among the rocks, and a shepherd had to know where to go find it. So again, this is the perspective we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at that water was precious then. Water was extremely precious. And some streams back then and back at that place, some streams just flowed only during rainy seasons. Certain ravines could suddenly flood, right? Different dangers than we face today. Other watering places that might be stagnant, right, or water that's pooled could become dangerous. It could become polluted. It could become inaccessible. And so we gotta have we gotta put that mindset on. We've gotta have that thinking of when we're interpreting Psalm 23, when we're looking at it closely, we gotta look at it through their lens, through their world, through their season that they were going through and the stuff they were going through. That's the way we gotta look at it. Let me see if I can back out of this a little bit, because I'm a little bit So a good shepherd, right? A good shepherd had to know the land. A good shepherd had to know where to take his sheep. A good shepherd was one that would bring us, not only know the land, but bring in protection. And then bring the sheep to a place where they can feed, where they can get water. Where safe, not only just water, but safe water. See, all these things that I'm talking about, I'm mentioning right now, these are important to know. When we go through Psalm 23, you're going to understand all this that I'm saying. You're going to understand why I'm saying dangerous polluted waters or inaccessible waters or safety or where you can find food or so on and so forth. Or being able to recognize dangerous paths, right? David had to watch the weather. He had to understand and know the weather. He didn't have Channel 3 to tell him, hey, it's going to be stormy tomorrow, right? El Nino is going to hit. How many of you have been hearing about El Nino this, El Nino that? The waters are warming and be ready, be ready, be ready. He didn't have those radars. He didn't have that system to be able to understand and watch the weather. But he had to not only protect his sheep from the weather, right? But he had to protect his sheep from predators and from thieves and from injury and from disease. Oh yeah, just let this soak in. Marinate on what I'm saying, because this is all going to mean something. Protect them from disease. Oh, when he pours the oil over the head of the sheep, and just wait till you hear that part. Because the sheep, I don't know why sheep, why God made them such, I hate to say it, but dumb animals. I mean, dumb compared to like dogs or even dolphins, right? I know dolphin is a certain mammal, but anyways, you know, I mean, like dogs, for example. I used to never think that I never used to think dogs were super smart till we had one that was super smart, and I used to like whatever. You know, my wife would talk to it normal, like a normal person, and I would be like, "You're wasting your time. What are you doing?" You know, I talk to him in codes and whistles and things of that nature. And my wife would talk to this dog normal, and I'll be like, "That dog doesn't understand anything you're saying." And lo and behold, you know, as time went on, I'm like, "Wow, that dog did understand that." That dog is no longer with us, but why does God compare us to sheep often in Scripture, right? To some of the most, I would say it this way, okay, the most challenged, intellectually challenged animals, right? Why? I don't know, but I know that we're often called, you know, the sheep, right? And so the sheep, they didn't, you know, David knew that you don't just release a sheep and expect it to take care of itself. It just didn't happen that way. They needed someone to lead them. And that is the world behind the Lord is my shepherd, right? We're going to break this down, but just to kind of start getting into it. The Lord is my shepherd. When David was writing that about shepherding from a distance, right, or using that as an example, the Lord is my shepherd, because he can write that because before David ever wore a crown, he carried a shepherd's staff. He was a shepherd before he ever led a nation. And as you know, David led a nation. Now, let me again quickly interject. You might be asking, why am I talking about David? We're talking about Psalm. Well, David is the author of Psalm, right? And we're going to get into, as we get into the experience and the knowledge of that author and how he writes Psalm 23, it's going to make a lot more sense. That's why I'm talking about David. Because before he ever faced armies, before David ever faced the Philistine, right? He faced lions, he faced bears. You could read that in various books of the Old Testament. Before anyone called him king, he was a young son of Jesse, tending sheep outside Bethlehem, before anyone called him a king. 1 Samuel 16, when it says that when Samuel, the prophet, when he came to Jesse's house, which is David's father, right, to anoint one of his sons, because God had instructed Samuel to go and anoint one of Jesse's sons to be the next king of Israel. Saul was the king at that moment. And he says, hey, I want you to go to this man's house and I want you to anoint him king. And so he knew that he needed to go to the house to anoint one of Jesse's sons as king, but he didn't know which son, right? He didn't say, hey, I want you to go anoint David. No, he said, I want you to go to the house. You're going to anoint the next king of Israel. And so David wasn't even brought into the room for Saul to come, for Samuel to come in and anoint him. David they didn't even bother to bring in David. Why? Because he was out tending the sheep. He was a shepherd. And that he was thought of lowly, not only by his brothers, but by his father. His father did not, can you imagine? Your dad was like, nah, we're good. Don't call Saul. Don't call David. Just leave him. Leave him in the field. Because he was out keeping the sheep anyways. He's busy, whatever. He's not going to be anointed. I got these other great sons. Look at how powerful and amazing, and look at their resumes. And so they didn't bother to bring David. He was overlooked, not only by people in general, but by his family. But in spite of that fact, he was seen by God. Now, I'm going a little bit off right now, but he was seen by God. He wasn't forgotten by God. And if I can, again, I'm not getting into the heavy teaching yet, but just if you've been overlooked, if you've been picked last, right? If you're the one is considered the black sheep of your family, going back to that word sheep, God hasn't overlooked you. Maybe people have. Maybe your family has, but God hasn't overlooked you. God is pinpointing you to do something exactly what he wants you to do for him. And you're seen by God. You're seen by God. That's a different Bible study, but powerful truth right there. So David, he learned faithfulness. He learned stewardshipness. He learned tenacity. He learned how to press through, even though he was in isolated places, even though he wasn't around a lot of people, even though he wasn't leading people even. Or even people weren't paying attention to him. Didn't think enough of him to bring him to see the anointing ceremony at his dad's house. Nah, just leave him out there. But even when few people were watching, even him being in isolation, he learned patience, he learned courage, he learned responsibility, he learned dependence upon God while caring for his sheep. Think about that. David learned how to depend on God while taking care of sheep. Not taking care of people, not taking care of responsibilities in the sense that, paying his bills or making sure the lights are on, you know what I'm saying. But by taking care of sheep, he learned dependence on God. You know what I'm saying? And maybe someone called you to a powerful ministry, to a powerful moment, to a powerful leading of people. But all you're doing is around nobody. You're in isolation. You're like, God, I thought you called me to do X, Y, and Z. Why am I doing A? Why am I not even in that arena? Why am I not even close to what I feel you've called me to do? I'm gonna tell you something right now. Don't let the delays be your denials. God has called you to do something powerful. So God definitely called David to do something powerful. And so he's out there getting looked over, getting the cold shoulder treatment. But yet God had plans for him. God had an incredible plan for him. So later when he stood before King Saul and offered to fight Goliath, which is crazy, right? Crazy. And we're not going to get in that story maybe, I don't know. But in this Psalm 23, but it is just important background. That's what I'm doing, just giving you background of David. But when he faced Goliath, or when he offered, let me just say that, when he said, hey, I'll go and fight him, right? When he said that to King Saul, who was the king at the time, David explained at that moment, like, listen, when a lion or a bear carried away my sheep or attacked my sheep, I went after it. I struck it. I killed him, and I rescued the sheep. That it reminds me. Hey, let me get some comments in there. Are you guys? I know people are watching. I can see you guys. I can't see who's watching. All right, Manessa. Oh man, I'm gonna share some stuff about Manessa hopefully this week. Powerful, awesome stuff, Manessa. He's from East Africa, and man, you blessed me, So he's gonna bless you guys. You'll see. I'll set it up because my studio's not set up yet, and I want to put in stuff that you sent me. So amen. Good to see you, Manessa. But yeah, we just came back yesterday, just hello. And so today's the first of the teaching. So Manessa, good to have you. But yeah, let's get some comments. But David had already said, I know. When I'm talking about how David said that he struck the sheep or the bear and the lion, right? And he rescued the sheep. It reminds me of the movie David, the animation that just came out, I don't know, less than a year ago, I'm pretty sure. And, but anyways, so I watched it at the movie theaters, and I have to be honest with you. I probably slept through most of it. And I hate paying whatever we have to pay to go to the movie theaters, but I wanted to support, I wanted to support that movie and the ministry and whatnot. So I went, and we went, and my wife and my daughter were like, oh, it was wonderful, right? And I was just like rolling my eyes like, oh, really? I mean, they have a blank canvas, and that's the way they went. And I was disappointed. I was like, I thought it was the weakest movie ever. And then, I mean, not ever, but And then at church, we showed it, right? We had a movie night at our church, and we showed that movie. And so I said, I'm going to watch this. I'm going to watch it, right? So I watched it almost all the way to the end. I got pulled away, but almost all the way to the end. And I was like, this is awesome, man. This is a great movie. I mean, I don't know what I was just not, I was asleep, I guess. But like when he got anointed, when Samuel anointed him, powerful, man. When how they interpret it. I mean, they interpreted, not interpreted, but they put their spin on like maybe why Saul was tormented. I thought that was great, right? How David, how he was there, he could have killed Saul in the cave. Those things. I mean, because it does, it gives us play by play, but it doesn't give us the exact surroundings, and And I thought they did a great job. I was like, this is good. So if you haven't seen the movie David, sorry, I'm not in my studio yet. But if you haven't seen the movie David, I encourage you to go see it. I'm sorry about the background noise. Linda Bishop says, very thankful for this important teaching. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Ms. Bishop, for sending that. But this psalm, we have to go back and understand some of the background of David, right? And because David was not merely present around his flock, right? He was personally invested in his flock. He was personally just had a personal investment, I guess, into his flock. So when danger came, he didn't immediately run away, right? When a bear came, when a lion came, he didn't say, oh no. Mr. Harry Potter, thank you for letting me know I got this. Thank you. Even with the background noise. Yeah, when I get my studio set up, we're not, hopefully won't hear that kind of stuff. But he was invested. He was totally into his flock, totally into what he was doing and the protection of them. So he didn't run away when danger came. And that movie, David, what I was just mentioning, they showed how one of the sheep were injured and how he protected them from a lion. And so they did a good job on that. But he placed himself in between the shepherd or the sheep and the danger, whether it's a lion or bear or whatever. And so when David called the Lord his shepherd, right? When David said, the Lord is my shepherd, or when he called the Lord his shepherd, right? He understood the strength of that statement. He understood, oh, I'm over. Okay. All right. Guys, I'm over. We'll continue this tomorrow. I'll probably just finish up the background tomorrow. Guys, thank you. If you've never subscribed, I encourage you to do so. youtube.com/YDW today. And then also we're here every Monday through Thursday, right? From 12 noon to 12:30. That's why I'm ending right now. God bless you. We'll see you guys tomorrow.